My name is Doug Rasmussen and I am 45 years old. 3 months ago, I sat across a desk from a car dealer named Rick Danvers, a man who had smiled while he sold my 16-year-old daughter's first car, and I watched him read a single document I had placed in front of him, and I watched every ounce of that salesman's confidence drain right out of his face. He had spent our whole first meeting talking to me like I was a simple man, a factory guy who did not understand cars or contracts or the fine print, a man he could sell a dressed-up wreck to and never hear from again. And now he was staring at a piece of paper that proved beyond any argument that the safe, certified low-mileage car he had sold me for my daughter to drive was in fact a rebuilt wreck with its odometer rolled back by 70,000 miles, and that he had known it, and that I could prove he had known it. Rick Danvers looked up from that paper, and for the first time since I had met him, he had absolutely nothing to say. For 2 years, I saved money out of every paycheck so that when my daughter, Katie, turned 16, I could buy her a good, safe, reliable first car, because there is almost nothing a father wants more than to know his kid is safe on the road. And Rick Danvers, of Danvers Auto Group, took that money and that trust and that hope, and he sold me a car that was not safe at all. A car that had been totaled in a wreck in another state, rebuilt, its title washed clean, its odometer wound back, and dressed up with a fake certified inspection. And he did it knowing my 16-year-old daughter would be the one driving it. He thought I was a mark. He thought a factory worker would never figure it out, and would never be able to fight him if he did. But here is the one thing Rick Danvers did not understand about the man he decided to cheat. My whole life, at the factory and at home, I have been the kind of man who reads everything, keeps everything, and does not let a thing go until he understands it all the way down. And when I understood that this man had put my daughter's life at risk to make a few $1,000s, I did not get loud. I got patient and I got thorough, and I found the one piece of proof he forgot to remove, and then I brought down the whole thing on his head, exactly the way the law was written to let a man like me do. Before we get into this, if you are new here, please take a moment to like and subscribe. It genuinely helps this channel more than you know. And while you are here, do me a favor and drop a comment telling me where in the world you are watching from and what time it is where you are. I read every one of them, and I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now let me take you back to the beginning, to 2 years of saving, and to a father's simple wish to keep his little girl safe. I live in Fenwick, a working town of about 12,000 people built around a manufacturing plant where I have worked as a machinist for 22 years. I am not a complicated man. I make parts to 1,000th of an inch. I coach a little league team in the spring. I have been married to my wife, Janet, for 19 years. And we have 2 kids, Katie, who is 16, and a boy, Danny, who is 10. We do not have much, but we have enough. And everything I have I earned by showing up on time for 22 years and doing careful work. Because careful work is the only kind I know how to do. My father was a machinist before me at the same plant, and he taught me that, in our trade, there is no room for close enough. That a part is either right or it is scrap, and that a man who checks his work twice never has to explain himself later. I did not know when he taught me that he was giving me the exact habit of mind that would one day let me take apart a con man's whole scheme. But he was. Let me tell you how deep that habit runs, because it is the hero of this story more than I am. On the floor at the plant, I run parts to a tolerance of 1,000th of an inch, and I have done it for 22 years, and in all that time I have never once shipped a part that was out of spec, because I check, and then I check again, and if a number is wrong I do not shrug and call it close enough. I stop and I find out why. My father used to say that the world is full of people who are willing to call a thing good enough, and that those people cause every disaster there has ever been, and that a careful man's whole job is to refuse to be one of them. It made me, I will admit, a little slow, a little fussy, the guy who reads the whole contract while everyone else is signing. Janet teases me about it, but that fussiness, that refusal to let a wrong number go, that inability to call a thing good enough when it is not, is precisely the thing Rick Danvers could not survive, because a con man builds his whole living on people who do not check twice, and he had the terrible luck to sell his worst car to a man who has never in his life let a wrong measurement slide. When Katie started getting close to 16, Janet and I did what a lot of parents do. We started saving for her first car. And I want you to understand what that meant to me, because it is the whole heart of this story. When you have a daughter and she is about to start driving, a fear settles into you that never fully leaves, because you know what is out there on those roads, and you know she is going to be out there in it. And the one thing, the only thing you can do to protect her is to put her in a car you can trust. So this was not just a purchase to me. This was me doing the one concrete thing a father can do to keep his child safe. For 2 years, I put money aside from every check, gave up things, worked overtime, because I wanted to be able to buy Katie not a flashy car, not a new car, just a good, solid, safe, reliable used car, one I did not have to lie awake worrying about. By the time Katie turned 16, I had saved up enough to do it right, and I felt good about it, proud, like a father who had taken care of his own. And then I drove onto the lot at Danvers Auto Group, and I handed all of that, the money and the hope and the trust, to a man who saw only a mark. 2 years is a long time to save on a machinist's wages with 2 kids and a mortgage. I want you to know what went into that money because it makes what Danvers did worse. It was overtime shifts I picked up when I would rather have been home. It was the boat I did not fix and the vacation we did not take. It was Janet clipping coupons and me packing my lunch every single day for 2 years instead of buying it, a few dollars at a time, into a coffee can at first and then into a savings account, watching it grow. And every time it grew, I thought about Katie behind the wheel, and I thought, that is another $100 of safety. Another $100 between my girl and whatever is out there on the road. That money was not just money. It was 2 years of a father's love converted into dollars, saved up for the single purpose of protecting his child. And I carried it onto that lot like an offering, proud. And Rick Danvers looked at me carrying it, and he did not see a father's 2 years of love. He saw a wallet attached to a man too trusting to check the fine print. That is the difference between us in the end. I was thinking about my daughter's life. He was thinking about his margin. And he was so sure that his kind of thinking beats my kind of thinking, right up until the day it did not. Rick Danvers was the owner, and he handled our sale himself, which I took at the time as a good sign, a busy man taking personal care of a family, and which I now understand was because a con this deliberate needs the owner's own hand on it. He was friendly, warm, called Katie by name, asked about the little league team when I mentioned it, made us feel like we were among friends, and he showed us a car that seemed perfect. A clean, sharp-looking sedan, the kind of solid, sensible car you would want for a new driver, and he told us it was one of his certified pre-owned vehicles, which meant it had passed a rigorous multi-point inspection, and it had low miles, and it had a clean history. And it was, he assured me, looking me right in the eye, exactly the kind of safe, dependable car he would put his own daughter in. He showed me a certified inspection document, an official-looking sheet with check marks all down it, everything inspected, everything passing. Katie loved it. It was within my budget, and I trusted him because he looked me in the eye and told me it was safe, and I am a man who, God help me, still expects other men to mean what they say. I bought it. I handed over 2 years of careful saving, and I drove my daughter's first car home, and I felt like I had done my job as a father. That feeling lasted about 3 weeks. I keep coming back in my mind to Katie's face that day, because it is the thing Danvers really stole. She was 16 and it was her first car, and you know what that means at that age. It is not really a car. It is freedom. It is growing up. It is the whole world opening. She ran her hand along the hood. She sat in the driver's seat and put both hands on the wheel and looked at me through the windshield with a grin that took me straight back to the day she was born. She named it that afternoon, the way kids do, and I stood there on that lot, watching my daughter fall in love with her first taste of freedom, and I felt like the richest man alive, because I had worked 2 years to give her exactly that moment, and here it was. Rick Danvers stood next to me watching the same thing, my little girl glowing behind the wheel of the car he knew was a hidden wreck, and he smiled and told me what a great car it was for her. He watched a father give his daughter what he thought was safety and freedom, knowing it was neither, and he smiled. I think about that a lot. It is one thing to cheat a man out of money. It is another to stand there and smile while a father unknowingly puts his child in danger and use the child's joy as part of the sale. That is the part of Rick Danvers I will never understand and never forgive. And it is the part that made me absolutely certain later that a refund was not going to be nearly enough. The first thing that was wrong was the financing. And it is worth telling because it was the first sign of what kind of operation Danvers really was, though I did not read it right at the time. About a week after the sale, after we had the car home and Katie was already driving it, Rick Danvers called me and said in an apologetic tone that there had been a problem with the financing, that the bank had fallen through, and that I would need to come back in and either put more money down or accept a higher interest rate to keep the deal together. Now, I did not know it then, but this is a known scam. It is called a yo-yo, where the dealer lets you drive off thinking the deal is done, and then calls you back claiming the financing collapsed, betting that you are already attached to the car, that your kid is already driving it, that you will not want to give it back. And so you will agree to worse terms. I did not know the name of it, but something about it sat wrong with me, the way an off measurement sits wrong. And I did the thing I always do, which is I did not react in the moment. I said I would look at my paperwork and get back to him, and I hung up and I went and got the folder where I had put every single document from the sale, because I keep everything. And I started to read it all again carefully, the way my father taught me. And that is when the whole thing started to come apart, because a careful man reading carefully is exactly what a con like Rick Danvers cannot survive. The more I read that paperwork, the more small things did not add up, and my machinist's brain, the one that cannot leave a wrong measurement alone, would not let it go. And then Katie mentioned something that turned a bad feeling into a cold certainty. She said the car had started making a strange noise and pulling a little to one side, and that a couple of things did not feel right. And my daughter, bless her, did not think much of it, but I did. Because a certified inspected low-mileage car 3 weeks off the lot does not develop a list of problems like that. So I did something I should have done before I ever bought it, and I will carry that regret. But I did it now. I took down the car's VIN, the vehicle identification number, and I started to investigate the actual history of the car I had bought, and what I found turned my stomach and then slowly turned it to iron. I want to walk you through it, because the investigation is the part where a helpless, cheated father slowly turned back into a machinist working a problem, and it steadied me. I started the way you always start, with the one number that does not lie, the VIN, which is stamped on the car in several places and follows it from the day it is built to the day it is crushed. And I learned that you can take that number and pull the car's whole life story, the states it has lived in, the times it changed hands, the accidents reported to insurers, the title brands, the odometer readings recorded at inspections and sales and service visits along the way. It is all there for anyone patient enough to pull it and careful enough to read it. And as I read my daughter's car's life story, it was nothing like the story Rick Danvers had told me. Danvers said one owner, clean, local, low miles. The VIN said a car that had lived in another state, been wrecked badly enough for an insurer to total it, and then reappeared with a suspiciously clean title, its violent history scrubbed away in the paperwork. And when I lined up the odometer readings the record had captured over the years and set them next to the low number Danvers had sold me, the line went the wrong way. The mileage recorded years ago was higher than the mileage he sold me as current. A car's odometer only goes one direction. Mine on paper had gone backward through time by 70,000 miles, which is not possible, which means it was not a mileage at all. It was a lie, wound into the dashboard by somebody's hand. I sat at my kitchen table reading it and rereading it, checking it twice the way my father taught me, making sure I was not wrong, hoping I was wrong. I was not wrong. I ran the VIN through the history services, the real ones, and the story that came back was not the clean history Rick Danvers had sold me. This car had been in a serious accident in another state, serious enough to have been declared a total loss by an insurance company, a salvage vehicle, which means the insurer decided it was too damaged to be worth repairing. Someone had then bought that wreck, rebuilt it, and, through a process people in the shady end of the business know how to do, moved it through states and paperwork in a way that washed the salvage brand off the title, so that by the time it reached Rick Danvers's lot, or by the time he sold it to me, it carried what looked like a clean title. Title washing, they call it. My daughter's Safe First car, the one I saved 2 years for, was a rebuilt total loss with its damaged history scrubbed off the paperwork, and that was only half of it. Because the mileage was wrong too. The history I pulled showed the car's odometer readings over the years, recorded at various points, inspections, service visits, prior sales. And those recorded readings, years ago, were already far higher than the low mileage Rick Danvers had sold me. The odometer had been rolled back, wound down. Someone had turned back the mileage on this car by roughly 70,000 miles to make it look like the low mileage cream puff Danvers had presented to me. Odometer fraud, which, and I did not know this at the time either, is not just sleazy. It is a serious federal crime because a rolled back odometer does not just cheat you on price, it hides how worn out and unsafe a vehicle actually is. Which brings me to the part that still makes my hands shake when I think about it. This was the car I had put my 16-year-old daughter in, not a low-mileage certified sedan. A high-mileage rebuilt wreck, its true condition hidden, its worn-out parts disguised, sold to me with a fake certified inspection and a straight-faced promise that it was as safe as a car he would put his own daughter in. Rick Danvers had knowingly put my child in a dangerous car to make a few $1,000s. When I fully understood that, sitting at my kitchen table at midnight with the history report in my hands, I felt a rage unlike anything I have ever felt. A father's rage, the most dangerous rage there is. And I want to tell you honestly what I wanted to do, because these stories should not pretend. I wanted to drive to Rick Danvers' house. I am not a violent man. I have never been in a real fight in my life. But that night I wanted to find that man and make him understand physically what he had done, what he had risked, whose child he had gambled with. I sat at that table shaking with it. And what stopped me was Katie herself asleep upstairs, safe for now, because the wreck had not failed her yet. I thought about her, and I thought about my father teaching me that a man who loses his temper makes scrap. And I understood slowly, as the rage cooled into something colder and far more useful, that if I went and did something with my hands, I would be arrested, and Katie would still be in danger, and Rick Danvers would still be out there selling rebuilt wrecks to the next family with a new driver, and he would probably get to play the victim of the crazy factory worker who assaulted him. Everything my rage wanted was exactly what would let him win. So I set the rage down, the way I set down a part that is not ready, and I picked up a pen instead. And I started to do the thing I am actually good at, which is to document a problem so completely and so carefully that it cannot be argued with. The first thing I did, the very next morning, was take the car off the road. Katie was upset, but I told her the truth, that Daddy needed to check some things about the car for safety, and I got her a ride to school, because there was no version of this where my daughter kept driving a hidden wreck one more day. Then I started building the case, and I built it the way I make a part, to spec, no gaps, checking everything twice. I had the full VIN history, showing the salvage total loss and the title washing. I had the odometer readings proving the rollback of roughly 70,000 miles. I had the fake certified inspection document Danvers had given me, which I now understood was worthless. A checklist of lies because no honest certified inspection passes a rebuilt salvage wreck with a rolled back odometer. I had the entire sale paperwork, every page, and Danvers' advertising for the car, which described it as certified and low mileage in writing. And I had the yo-yo financing call, which, because I am the kind of man who keeps records, I had made careful notes about right after it happened. And then I found the thing that turned a strong case into an unbeatable one, the piece Rick Danvers forgot, the single overlooked detail that people like him always leave behind because they are careless in the way that careful men never are. I went over that car myself, inch by inch, in my own garage, the way I go over a part looking for the flaw, and inside it, I found the proof he had missed. Tucked in the door jamb, on the frame where you would only look if you were really looking, was an old oil change reminder sticker, the little sticker a service shop puts on to tell you when to come back. It was from a shop in the state where the car had come from over a year before I bought it. And on that sticker, in the shop's own handwriting, was the mileage at that oil change, more than a year before Danvers sold me the car as low mileage. And that mileage, written on that sticker over a year earlier, was tens of thousands of miles higher than the number on the odometer Rick Danvers had sold me. There it was, a physical, undeniable third-party record left inside the car itself, proving that the odometer had read far higher more than a year ago than it read the day I bought it. A car's mileage cannot go down, everyone knows that. That single sticker, which Danvers had overlooked when he cleaned up the car for sale, was the smoking gun. The thousandth of an inch that proves the whole part is out of spec. I photographed it in place. I did not remove it. I had him. I sat down on the floor of my garage next to that car after I found it, and I will admit to you that I put my head in my hands for a minute, because two things hit me at once. The first was triumph, the machinist's quiet satisfaction of finding the one flaw that proves the whole part is bad, the single measurement that ends all argument. But the second thing, right behind it, was a wave of something much colder, because that little sticker, that stupid, overlooked sticker, was also proof of exactly how high the real mileage was, which meant it was proof of exactly how worn out and used up and unsafe the car really was. The car my 16-year-old had been driving to school for 3 weeks. The sticker did not just catch Danvers. It measured, in cold numbers, the size of the risk he had put my daughter in. 70,000 hidden miles. 70,000 miles of where he had wound off the dial so a worn-out rebuilt wreck would look like a safe first car for a kid. I sat on that garage floor and I looked at that sticker, and I thought about Katie merging onto the highway in that thing, and I had to breathe for a while before I could stand up. And when I stood up, I was not shaking anymore. I was calm all the way through, the coldest and clearest I've ever been in my life, because now I was not a frightened father anymore. I was a man who had found the flaw and documented it and had the whole rest of the truth lined up behind it, and knew exactly, patiently, methodically, what he was going to do next. Now here is where a lot of men would have gone straight back to Rick Danvers and thrown it all on his desk and demanded their money back and gotten, at most, a refund and a smug apology, and Danvers would have gone right on selling wrecks to other families the next week. But I understood by now, having read up on all of it, that what Rick Danvers had done was not just a bad deal I could unwind. It was fraud. And specifically, it was odometer fraud, which is a federal offense, and title fraud and consumer fraud, and that the law provides real weapons for exactly this, weapons that hurt a dealer far more than a quiet refund. Under the federal odometer law, a person defrauded like I had been can recover far more than they lost. Treble damages, 3 times the actual damages, plus attorney's fees, which means a dealer who rolls back an odometer is not risking a refund. He is risking paying you 3 times over and covering your lawyer while he does it. And beyond my own case, odometer fraud and title washing are the kind of thing that gets a dealer's license pulled by the state and gets the attention of the state attorney general's Consumer Protection Division, especially, and this is the part that finished him, if it turns out he has done it before to other people, which men like Rick Danvers always have. So I did not go storming back to the lot. I got a lawyer, one who knew auto fraud, and I laid my perfectly documented case in front of him, the VIN history, the rollback, the fake certification, the sale paperwork, and the photograph of that oil change sticker in the door jamb, and I watched him go through it and start to smile, because he did not often get a case handed to him this clean. He told me that the sticker alone, that physical third-party proof of the higher, earlier mileage, was the kind of evidence these cases usually never have, and that combined with the salvage title washing and the fake certification, Rick Danvers was not looking at a refund. He was looking at treble damages, and a whole lot worse. And then I did the thing that turned my one case into the end of Rick Danvers's whole operation. I asked my lawyer to help me find out whether I was the only one, because a man does not learn to wash a title and roll back an odometer and forge a certification for a single sale. That is a practiced operation, and practiced operations have a trail of victims. We found them. It took some looking, but once you know what to look for, once you have one confirmed rebuilt wreck sold as certified from Danvers Auto Group, the pattern is not hard to start pulling on. There were complaints, quiet ones, scattered, from other families who had bought certified cars from Danvers that turned out to be trouble. People who had mostly given up, taken a small refund and gone away, or just eaten the loss, never realizing that what happened to them was a documentable federal crime and not just bad luck. And when my lawyer and I, and eventually the state's consumer protection people, started connecting those scattered families the same way you would connect scattered measurements into a pattern, Rick Danvers's operation stopped looking like a few bad deals and started looking like exactly what it was, a systematic scheme of selling wash title salvage wrecks with rolled-back odometers and forged certifications to working families who trusted him. And that is not a thing a dealer survives. I want to be honest that finding the other victims was not about revenge, or not only about revenge. It started as strategy because my lawyer explained that a pattern is far more powerful than a single case. That one cheated customer can be dismissed as a misunderstanding, but a documented pattern of the same fraud is what pulls in the Attorney General and pulls a dealer's license. But somewhere in the middle of it, it stopped being strategy and became something more important to me. Because when we started finding those other families, I heard their stories, and they broke my heart, and they made me angrier than my own case ever had. There was an older couple on a fixed income who had bought a certified car from Danvers that turned out to be junk, and who had blamed themselves, thought they had just made a bad choice, and had quietly absorbed the loss because they did not know what else to do. There was a young man who had bought his first car from Danvers and been cheated the same way I was, and who had no idea it was even a crime. Every one of them had done what I almost did, which is feel ashamed and give up and go away quietly. Exactly what Rick Danvers counted on every single one of us doing. And I realized that if I only got my own money back and let it go, Danvers would keep right on doing this to the next older couple, the next kid, the next father, saving up for his daughter. So finding the others became, for me, the whole point. My documented case was the crowbar, but it was for prying open the door for all of them, and for slamming it shut on Rick Danvers for good. That is the meeting I began this story with. Before we ever went to court, my lawyer arranged a meeting, and I asked to be there. And I sat across the desk from Rick Danvers, who started out with his salesman's confidence still on, ready, I think, to offer me a quiet refund to make the annoying factory worker go away. And I slid one document across the desk to him. Not all of them, just one. The photograph of that oil change sticker in the door jamb next to the odometer reading he had sold me, the two mileage numbers side by side. The earlier one tens of thousands of miles higher than the later one, the physical, undeniable proof that he had rolled back the odometer, sitting right there in a photo he could not explain, could not argue with, could not talk his way past. And I watched Rick Danvers, the smooth man who had called my daughter by name while he cheated her, read that one piece of paper, and I watched his confidence die because a salesman can talk his way around almost anything except a third-party record of a higher mileage from a year before he sold you the car. There is no story for that. He looked up at me and he had nothing, and I said only quietly, "That's just the one I brought to show you there's a lot more. And it's not just my car, is it, Rick?" And he knew, right then, that it was over. I did not raise my voice in that room, not once, and I want you to understand why. Because it was the most satisfying part of the whole thing. Every instinct that had wanted to drive to his house in the night was still in me. And I could have let it out now safely across a desk, could have called him every name he had earned, could have told him exactly what I thought of a man who smiles while he endangers a child. But I did not, because I had learned by then that the calm is the power. A shouting man gives the other man something to push against, something to feel wronged by, a way to make it about tempers instead of facts. But a quiet man who slides one undeniable page across a desk and says almost nothing, that is a thing there is no defense against, because there is nothing to push against, only the truth sitting there in the open. My silence was heavier than any shouting could have been, and Rick Danvers, who made his whole living with his mouth, sat there in it with nothing to say, and I let him sit in it, and then I gathered my one photograph back up. And I stood and I left, because I did not need anything from him. My lawyer and the state would take it from there. I had only come to look him in the eye the way he had looked in mine, and to let him understand that the mark he had chosen was the one who was going to end him. Then I went home to my daughter. It was over. The case against Danvers Auto Group, once it was properly documented, and the other families were connected, and the state's Consumer Protection Division was involved, was overwhelming because odometer fraud leaves a trail, and I had followed it all the way. In my own case, I recovered far more than the money I had paid, treble damages under the federal odometer law plus my attorney's fees, so that cheating me cost Rick Danvers several times what he stole. But that was the least of it for him. The pattern of fraud, once it was in front of the state, became a matter for the licensing authority and the Attorney General, and a dealer who systematically sells washed title salvage wrecks with rolled back odometers does not keep his license and does not stay open, and does not, in the more serious cases, stay entirely out of the reach of the law that treats odometer fraud as the crime it is. Danvers Auto Group is gone now. The lot sits empty, and Rick Danvers, who looked me in the eye and told me the wreck he was selling my daughter was as safe as a car he would put his own child in, learned that the quiet, careful factory man he had marked as an easy target was the worst possible person he could have chosen to cheat, because I do not let a wrong measurement go, ever. And I had all the time and all the patience in the world when it came to my little girl's life. I bought Katie a different car in the end, from an honest dealer 2 towns over, a plain, solid, genuinely safe used car, and I checked its history myself before I ever let her sit in it, VIN and all, because I am not the same trusting man I was, and that is all right. And I will tell you the thing that matters most out of all of it, more than the treble damages, more than seeing Danvers Auto Group shut down. It is that Katie is safe. The wreck never got the chance to fail her at 70 miles an hour on the highway, which, with worn-out hidden parts and a disguised history, it very well might have someday. My 2 years of saving did, in the end, buy my daughter a safe car and a safe father watching over the whole thing, just not the way I first thought. And Katie learned something too. Watching her dad refuse to let a powerful man cheat her and get away with it, watching me do it not with anger, but with patience and paperwork and the truth. She is a careful young woman now, my Katie. She reads the fine print. She got that from me, and I got it from my father, and Rick Danvers, without meaning to, made sure it got passed all the way down. There is a moment from the end of it that I hold on to, after it was all over, after the treble damages and the lot sitting empty. Katie was doing her homework at the kitchen table one night, and out of nowhere she looked up and asked me how I had known something was wrong with the car when the man at the dealership seemed so nice and so sure. And I sat down across from her, and I told her the truth, that being nice and being sure are the 2 things a liar practices most, and that the only protection against a smooth, confident man is to check calmly everything he tells you against the facts, which do not care how nice he is. I told her about her great-grandfather and the 1,000th of an inch, about how a part is either right or it is scrap no matter how much you want it to be right. And I watched my 16-year-old take that in, really take it in, and I understood that Rick Danvers, in trying to cheat my family, had actually handed my daughter the single most valuable thing I could ever teach her, which is that her own careful mind is a fortress no smiling man can talk his way into. She will be cheated in her life, everyone is, but she will never be an easy mark. And she learned that watching her quiet father refuse to be one. If that is what came out of all of it, then Rick Danvers did me a strange kind of favor, though I will never thank him for it, and I would burn every dollar of the damages to have spared her the danger she was in for those 3 weeks. But she is safe, and she is careful, and she is mine, and Danvers Auto Group is an empty lot. I can live with that trade. So let me leave you with what a rolled-back odometer taught me, and then I will let you go. The people who cheat you, especially the smooth ones, the ones who look you in the eye and sell you a lie with a handshake, they are counting on one thing above all. They are counting on you being trusting and busy, and not the kind of person who reads all the paperwork or checks the history or follows the trail all the way down. They are counting on you being a mark. So do not be a mark. Be the careful one. Read everything, keep everything, check the history, and when something does not add up, do not let it go, because a thing that does not add up never adds up for no reason. And when you find that they have wronged you, do not go at them with your fists or your temper, which is exactly the mistake they are hoping you will make. Go at them with the truth documented to spec, no gaps, and learn the law that was written to protect you, because there is more of it on your side than you know, and it hits a cheater far harder than your fist ever could. Rick Danvers sold my daughter a hidden wreck and forgot one sticker in a door jamb. That one sticker, and a father who refused to look away, brought his whole operation down. Check your work, keep your records, And never ever let a smiling man decide that you are a mark. If this story meant something to you, tell me in the comments where you are watching from and what time it is there. And tell me honestly, have you ever been cheated on a big purchase like a car, and did you fight it or let it go? I read every single comment and I want to hear it. Take care of yourselves, check the history before you buy, and I will see you in the next one.